diagnosed with ADHD. Let's talk about it. Hey, my name is Daniel and welcome to Empty Inbox. This is a series right here on my YouTube channel where I talk about pretty much anything that I want. Kind of an idea that, there's so many thoughts in my head and it's time to empty my metaphorical inbox. This is only the second episode I've actually made of this show, or series, I should say. I started this back in the spring and I thought I was going to post a lot more over the summer. Some CPA studying got in the way, so that didn't really happen. And just in general, I don't know. I think this was the video that I wanted to make really since May. And there was just something holding me back with it. And I think I was just having a hard time thinking of making anything else until this got posted and this got shared. And to be honest, that's kind of how I felt a lot on all of my socials this year. Just kind of feeling like as soon as I got this news, I needed to share it before I could be my authentic self. But for some reason, I was just having a hard time sharing it. But I'm ready now, and that's what's great. So I don't know, I guess just kind of general life update for anyone who's been following my social media for a little bit now. I am still in Denver. I recently got promoted at work, so that's exciting. I just got my office this week, actually, which is really fun. And I think overall, I'm in a really good place mentally. There's definitely, for sure, things that I want and need to work on. But thinking about where I was a year ago to where I am now, it's like night and day. And that's really, really exciting. And I think realizing that it's been a year since this kind of journey that I'm going to get into began is part of the reason why I'm ready right now to talk about it. So you saw the title, you saw the intro, let's get into it. So about a year ago, I was not doing super well, if I'm being totally honest. I was not in a good spot mentally whatsoever. And I think a big reason for that was me putting, just a lot of pressure on myself in the year by framing it in one word. I told myself that my word of the year was gratitude. And that was something that I really wanted to hold on to in everything that I did. And I think that was a little bit of a response to what had happened to me the year before, where I went through a really tough breakup. And I think at the beginning of 2024, so the breakup was in 2023. And so I think at the beginning of 2024, I kind of was just in this spot where it's I was trying so hard in my head to reframe the pain that I was feeling, to reframe it as gratitude, to be no, you need to learn from this and you need to move on. And I think that worked in some instances and it didn't work in others. And so as more things happened throughout 2024, that didn't make me feel good, and me feeling like I was forced to frame it in a sense of gratitude and not feel those feelings was really harmful for me, which is so frustrating because it was self-inflicted. I told myself, I was oh, this is your year of gratitude. And so everything you do this year has to revolve around that. But what happens when you don't feel grateful for a situation? And what happens when you're in so much stress that is not good for you and you need to get out of it, but you're telling yourself you have to be grateful for it and you have to figure out what is the bright side? What am I learning from this? I don't know. I guess it was a catch-22. I just put myself in a really bad spot with that. And so over the summer, I really started to have, over the summer, 2024, I really started to have a lot of anxiety. I've always struggled with anxiety, but it was getting really, really bad to the point where it felt paralyzing in some situations, and just a lot of stuff. A lot of it was work related, if I'm being honest, but it wasn't all work related. Some of it was just general life anxiety. And it was really hard, and it was really just a lot for me in general. So I made the decision to start therapy, which I am genuinely so grateful for. And I'm also really fortunate that I have the means to do it. In fact, my insurance covers 12 free sessions every year. So really, really grateful for that. I know that not everyone can just make a decision to be oh, I'm sad, time to go to therapy. But I was really fortunate in that I was able to do that. So my anxiety got really, really bad. And so I started therapy, virtual therapy. And I was really fortunate as well in the sense that I immediately vibed with my therapist, no issues whatsoever. We immediately clicked and immediately got things moving. And yeah, I think overall the first couple sessions were really good. Obviously, in those first ones, you're kind of like explaining like, why am I here? Who am I? Et cetera, et cetera. And right away, as I started to kind of explain a lot of my anxiety and a lot of like where that anxiety was stemming from, particularly in work situations, but once again, in other life situations as well, my therapist was like, you know, Daniel, you're really showing a lot of signs of ADHD, like a lot. And I was like, okay, cool. That's fun. I had maybe thought for a couple months before that maybe that was something that I had heard some other people in my life kind of be like, oh, like I have ADHD, and like what you're feeling kind of sounds like that. Like, you know, maybe just like think about that. I think my first thought when those people in my life told me that, and when my therapist told me this, is that like my first thought was just shut that down. Like, no, I don't have that. That's not me. Like, no. And I think I definitely stigmatized it in my brain. And it was really hard for me to, I guess, just kind of accept that that was even a possibility. And I didn't have a good reason for that. It was just like I had a negative connotation with it in my head, like an idea that's like, oh, like, you know, you're never going to be able to go back from this, blah, 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 like kind of stuff like that. And as we continue down the story, those feelings are going to reemerge. But yeah, so I started therapy in October 2024. And I would say at least by like November already, my therapist was like, Daniel, like this could really be a thing. And I was like, okay. And, you know, wasn't excited to hear that, but I was, you know, slowly just kind of getting to the point where it was like, okay, maybe I need to just accept it. I don't know. And so we get into busy season at work. So I'm an auditor in public accounting. So busy season and in public accounting for the audit side, at least, is like generally like late February to end of April, end of May, depending on like some stuff. I also don't audit public companies, so that makes it a little different as well. As busy season was starting to kind of begin, things started out pretty good. And then as, you know, the work continued to pile on, I was realizing that I was really struggling even a lot more than the year before. This was my second busy season. And so already I was already like, oh God, this feels different. Like maybe it's just something in the back of my head being like, you know, I'm having these people being like, telling me you have ADHD, like you need to figure this out, and just being kind of like thrown really large chunks of work and feeling like I can't focus on any of it. I can't get any of it done. It always feels just like such an impossible challenge. And because I'm going through those feelings in my brain, I'm not focusing on the work even more. And then I'm just exhausted all the time because all of my brain power is just being used for that. And so it was just like a lot. And I think, you know, as I continue to have therapy sessions and go through busy season, I was like, you know, this is just getting to the point where I'm like, it's too much. It's just straight up too much. And ultimately, I did get to the point where I was like, if I am going to continue in this moment right here, I need to figure this out. Like my brain is not happy. I'm not in a good spot. And I don't think that it's the job that's the issue, because there's plenty of people around me who are doing just fine. Like one of my very best friends, like she doesn't deal with these issues. And it's, you know, I talk to her all the time, and it's just me who's, you know, dealing with this. And it's like, there must be something else going on. So in March of this year, 2025, I decide to make the decision to be like, okay, Daniel, go see a doctor. Go get formally diagnosed, in frankly the hopes of getting some kind of one real concrete answer into medication to hopefully help with that. So I decided to go to a doctor. I first see a nurse practitioner and I tell her, you know, what's going on and why I'm there and all of that. And she's like, okay, well, what you're telling me immediately is already kind of sounding like a sign that, you know, that is maybe something that you have. You might have ADHD, but I can't formally diagnose you. And I was like, okay. So she says, go see our in-house psychiatrist and talk to her and kind of get that full thing done. And I was like, okay, cool. So I had that nurse practitioner appointment on a Friday. And then I believe the very next Monday, I had the psychiatrist appointment. So it was very quick. And I think when I first went into that first appointment with the nurse practitioner, like it was very easy. I felt calm. I felt collected. I did not feel stressed. Once I left it and knew that I was going to have this appointment on Monday, I really had a hard time. I think I did end up going into the office that day, and I think I had a literal like breakdown in my cubicle. I just tears like streaming down my face because like I just had so much fear of never going back and never being the person who I had been for 25 years. Like that person was going to go away. Like that's how it felt in my mind, is it felt like who I was up to that point. It's like, it's like BD and then like AD. Before diagnosis, after diagnosis. Like there's just like, it felt like it was going to be this like tectonal shift. And like, I felt like I was like giving away a piece of myself in a weird way. I don't know. Just a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. And I think just kind of like feeling like, oh, like here's another thing for you to be different. Here's another thing for you to struggle with. Like I just only viewed it in a negative capacity. I was like, this is going to just be a thing where people are going to judge me. They're going to think my abilities are less than because of this. They're going to be like, oh, why couldn't he figure this out on his own? Why are you seeking medication? Why? This is a general fear I have a lot in life, is people viewing me as like weak. And I think like a lot of it stemmed from that. Being like, oh, like you're weak because you needed to go like figure out this silly little thing going on with your brain. Like people go undiagnosed with this for their whole lives and they're doing just fine. So why do you need to do this? And that was all just internal dialogue. And at the same time, I was talking with my friends and I was talking with my parents, and they were all framing it as a good thing. They were like, this is something for you to learn more about yourself. And there's power in having the diagnosis and knowing how your brain works. And I don't know. I couldn't necessarily accept it in the moment, but I did go through with it. I just had kind of not the most fun weekend, and that's okay. I mean, big one weekend, but I definitely kind of felt like, okay, like, a part of my life is like ending right now. And so we get to that Monday and I go to the psychiatrist appointment. It's about an hour-long conversation talking about, everything. I just like all these kind of different aspects of my life. I did fill out a questionnaire beforehand, and it asked some pretty like basic questions, like, do you have a hard time focusing for long periods? Do you have a hard time wrapping up the little pieces of a task once like the big things are done? That's a big one that I struggle with for sure. Do you get really fidgety, like in your chair? Is that something that you do a lot? Do you get up from your chair in situations where maybe you shouldn't? Like it's hard for you to just like stay there. So just a lot of stuff like that. But then when I had the conversation with the psychiatrist, she asked a lot deeper like questions. I don't fully remember a lot of them, if I'm being totally honest, but I know that there were a lot more deeper things and a lot more like real examples that I provided her. And after the hour-long conversation, she was like, okay, well, I have no doubt in my mind that you have ADHD. So she diagnosed me with ADHD combined type. And then she also said, oh, and by the way, I also think you have generalized anxiety disorder. And I was like, okay, cool. So a diagnosis that I was not expecting at all. I went in just for the ADHD and, I got the bonus one. So that's fun. But that was also validating too, to know that like, my brain truly is different from other people's in that way as well. So ultimately it didn't shake me too much, which is good. And I think with that first day, it was a lot. It was a lot to kind of just be like sitting in it and being like, okay, like this is my life now. I have this information. What am I going to do with it? So the psychiatrist did not prescribe the medication. I then had to go back to the nurse practitioner. And I want to say I did that like 4 days later. I'm not entirely sure. It was a pretty short amount of time, thankfully. It was really funny. One of the first things that the nurse practitioner said to me in that appointment, she was like, oh yeah, like the psychiatrist, she came up to me and she was like, oh yeah, I talked to Daniel today. And he is really, really heavy on the ADHD. And I was like, oh, okay. So the closet was glass. Gotcha. Okay. Noted. I don't know. It just kind of made me chuckle because I was like, I had lived my whole life up to that point without that diagnosis. And so to have someone be like so confident, it was funny. I don't know. And I also kind of want to mention, like, I do feel like this has gotten worse in my adult life. Like, I feel like I handled it better when I was younger and in school. And I just had, I guess, frankly, just less to focus on. Like, I just had to focus on school. That was pretty much it. Now, it's focusing on work and feeding myself and, cleaning my apartment and doing all of these other things, like just a lot more responsibility. And I think like that's a big reason why it kind of manifested more in my adult life. But one thing I can always say is I've always hated reading, always hated it. And I think a big part of it is the fact that I just can't focus on it at all. I would always have so much anxiety in school whenever I had to do like, I would have to like read a novel and then I'd have to like answer questions on like batches of chapters. And that would give me so much anxiety because like I would read it, but I wouldn't pay attention. So like I would read the page and I'd get to the bottom of the page and I was like, I have no idea what happened on this entire page. And so it would always take me so much longer and my brain would always wander. It was just like, you know, not the most fun time, but that's okay. But I will say, like, I feel like that was like one things that's really like, that was like a real like indicator, I think, for me, like for my whole life to know that it's something that I've had is like just how much I've always struggled with reading. So medication, let's talk about it. So I got put on the medication. I got put on generic Vyvanse, which is lisdexamfetamine. I got put on 30 milligrams. So that was wild at the start. I think to go, you know, from no stimulant to then that stimulant that lasts the whole day. It's one of those ones where like you have to take it in the morning, otherwise you like can't go to bed. I think other stimulants, they have like a shorter time span, but this one's I think like 12 hours. And so that was wild. I can tell you those first couple weeks I was on it, I got so much done. It was crazy. And I wasn't drinking any caffeine at the moment at that time either. Like I started the medication and then I cut caffeine at the same time because I didn't want to have too much stimulant. And it was wild. It was a really good time. I'm not going to lie. Like I was like, oh, wow. Ultimately, you know, your body gets used to it over time and the effects of it aren't as intense as they once were for me, but it wasn't all great either. One of the main things that this medication does is it kind of suppresses your appetite and it makes it so you're not hungry. So I barely ate that first month I was on that medication. Like it was bad. And I was working like 60-hour weeks at work and I would like maybe have a meal a day, maybe sometimes just snacks. So not good there. Definitely not a good way to be treating my body, but it was life. It was, you know, I was on this medication. I was feeling so much better. I was able to focus. My procrastination was less. I was getting so much done. Ultimately, I did start to notice some other stuff as well. I would get calls from like my manager or whatever during work, and it would be like a longer than 10-minute call. And I'd be sitting there and then I'd get a notification on my Apple Watch and it says, oh, your heart rate is really high, but you're not moving. Like, what's going on? And I had never, ever gotten one of those before. And so I'd be sitting there and I'd be like, why is my heart rate like 130 right now? I'm literally just sitting here. Granted, these calls would generally stress me out, but my heart rate still shouldn't get that high. That's not normal. So ultimately, I continued to talk with my doctors and we lowered my dosage from 30 to 20. This is kind of fast forwarding a little bit. Over the summer, I did also do a full 2-week heart rate study, I guess. I had to wear like a Holter monitor for 2 weeks and just go about my daily life, exercise, go to work, whatever. And then that data went to a cardiologist who kind of looked it over and everything was fine with my heart. So there was concern that I maybe had like an arrhythmia or something, but nothing there. So that was really good. So definitely a big part was, I think, stimulants. And at that point, when I did the Holter monitor, I had already lowered my dose. So that was kind of like, as soon as I noticed the heart rate thing earlier in the year, I was like, okay, I should probably lower my dose. Did that, did the heart rate study. And he was like, okay, well, you're on the lower dose. I don't think you can really go any lower if you still want to see the benefits of the medication, which I think is valid. So his whole thing was like, eat more, eat better, exercise, do strength training, sleep, and drink water. Overall, live a healthier lifestyle. So that's really where I'm at right now. I'm like, what I'm trying to do. That's kind of like my next like chapter in this whole journey. But to kind of get back to kind of like the benefits of the medication, I guess I should say, is it's just overall, it really helps me focus a lot. Like I'm just not so exhausted all the time. And that's huge. Like to not feel like I'm falling asleep 24/7, incredible. That's absolutely something I felt before the medication. And the other thing that's really great is it has settled my anxiety a lot. And I'm really, really thankful for that because obviously anxiety is something that I definitely struggle with a lot. And to have medication that helps with that is really huge. And it's not specifically targeted for anxiety, but because it kind of helps me focus more on the present moment, it really prevents a lot of the spiraling, which is great. And I'm really, really thankful for that, because I do spiral a lot still. I mean, obviously it's not a miracle pill. I still have days where I can't focus. I still have days where I am really, really anxious, but it's just less frequent that those things happen. And over time, that makes a really, really big difference. So overall, I'm really thankful that I did get on the medication. And the other thing that's really helpful is just with this whole diagnosis in general is just having the context of like how my brain works is so helpful. And it's really validating. I have a tendency whenever something kind of goes awry in my life or goes a way that I don't like or wasn't planning on it going, I really tend to just completely blame myself entirely. And I think the ADHD can really help, or having the knowledge of the ADHD, I should say, really can help with that a lot. Like rejection, hypersensitivity is something like learning that that's a thing that's really big with ADHD helps a lot, because sometimes I'll feel like I'm crazy. I'm like, why am I so sad about getting rejected in one way or another when it wasn't that big of a deal to begin with? And it's like, oh, that's a thing when you have ADHD. And just, I don't know, realizing that like me being inconsistent with things is just part of it. And me being, just all over the place and forgetting things that are not super important. Like, it's okay. It just happens. It's like, I don't need to beat myself up for it. It's just how my brain works, but let's find ways to, make it better. So I make a lot more lists now. I plan out my life a lot more because I kind of have to, otherwise I will forget things. If I did not have my reminders app, let me tell you, I could not get anything done. Like, I still need other tools, of course, outside of this medication to make it better. But it's really nice to know that I have the information and I have the medication to just help me even beyond that. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know. The other thing that's been really great is just I've gotten no negative reactions from it from anyone in my life, which just shows that I've surrounded myself with good people, and also just showed that my anxieties are unwarranted and like people wouldn't judge me for that, because that's weird. I would never judge anyone else for telling me that they have ADHD. I'd be like, oh, yeah, cool. Like, nice. I don't know. It's like not a big deal, but in my brain, it was just such a big deal. And the big thing that I really felt is I was like, this is the end of an era. Post-diagnosis Daniel is going to be a completely different person. And I'm really happy to report that I'm not that different. I'm just happier. I'm less stressed. I'm much less anxious, and I'm getting more things done, whether that's at work or just personally. And so that's great. And, there's been so many other things that have come out through this process, going to the cardiologist and learning that I need to take care of my body more. And now I really feel like I'm starting a journey of wanting to love my body more. And I feel like this is kind of what I talked about in my Instagram post that I'm posting the same day that I'm posting this video. Is my next big thing is like really working on my confidence and trying to just be a more confident person in general, because I don't feel like that's where I'm at right now. It's just another thing for me to grow in, and for me to feel comfortable in my own skin is going to just take a little bit more time. And that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And to be honest, posting this video is part of that. Like, for me to finally admit to the internet that this is something that I've been going through all year is kind of a big deal for me, because like I said, I wanted to film this video in May after busy season, but I just never did. And it kept like going on my content calendar for the month. And then I kept just moving it to the next month, and then moving it to the next month, and moving it to the next month. But we're here now. And I think just overall, I'm just thankful that I took that step to go into therapy a year ago. I'm thankful that everyone in my life has been so supportive. And I'm thankful that I now have a much better understanding of the way my brain works, who I am, and how to continue to navigate through life and continue to grow as a person. And, things are not always perfect. I have been dealing with stuff in the past couple months that have been hard. But if I look at where I'm at right now, even after going through some hard things, like the way I am handling it and the way I'm going about it is in such a different way than how I would have a year ago. Even, just how I was pre-diagnosis in like February and January. Like it's just night and day. You know, there's so many things I want to continue to improve on. Obviously, confidence and loving my body. Those are like my two number one big ones right now, because I think like that's just so pervasive in my life. But another thing I want to work on is just consistency in general. Consistency. I'm posting on here. I haven't posted on here since June? I've only posted 2 episodes of this show or series. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just all about finding a balance and finding, you know, what works for me in life. And I'm still figuring that out, and that's okay. I'm only 26. I got time. Overall, I think I'm just thankful that this is the step that I took. And if you are ever like, hey, I think I should go to therapy, or hey, I might have, you know, ADD or ADHD or anything, you know, don't be afraid to take that step and just dive into it, because having the information and having the knowledge just makes such a difference. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I want to be more consistent, so I'm going to try to post more episodes of this series. I have plenty of things I want to talk about. Don't worry. There's so many things. You know, the new iPhone came out. The new Nintendo Switch came out. I have thoughts on the new Tron movie. I'm going to have thoughts on the new Avatar movie. I'm running a half marathon next week. I feel like that could be a fun thing to talk about. This is just kind of a series where I get to talk about anything. So I'm going to try my best to post more, but you know, no promises. I got to give myself a little bit of grace, but my DMs are always open. If you ever want to talk more about mental health or therapy or anything like that, you know, just reach out. It's all good. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye.